The recording has officially started. All right. All right. Welcome back to Two Dads Having a Beer. I'm your host, Brandon Labonte. And man, it feels so good to be back. It's been a minute since we last cracked open a cold one together. And let me tell you the things that I've missed. I've missed this, right? I've also missed conversations. I've missed laughs. I've definitely missed the chance to sit down and be real with other dads. If you're new here, first of all, thank you for joining us. Let me break it down for you what Two Dads and a Beer is all about. This show is about dads supporting dads. We talk about the wins, we talk about the epic fails, and everything in between. And the beer, folks, you know, it's not about the beer. That's just a bonus, right? That's a little something to help the stories flow a little bit. And it reminds us that life is too short not to enjoy the little things. So whether you're a new dad or you're a veteran dad or you're still figuring out how to change a diaper and you're in the dark walking through your entire house wondering where your kids might actually be, well, this show is for you. We're going to share a laugh, we're going to share a beer, and we're going to share it all together. And let's be honest here. You're not the only one doing it, and you're not alone in this game, right? And we're all just trying to figure it out. And maybe this show will allow each of us to learn a little bit something new, and we'll be better than we were yesterday. So if you're listening, man, I've got a lot of stories to share, or if you have a story to share, just let me know. Shoot me a message, and maybe we get you on the show as a guest dad yourself. Dads from every walk of life, because believe me, there's something that you have to offer. So don't be shy. Reach out and let me know that you want to be on the show, and we'll see what we can do about getting you here. And while you're at it, make sure that you like, you follow, and you share this podcast. Let's keep these conversations going. Let's grow this community, and let's remind everyone out there that being a dad is it's something that we should be proud of, and no matter how messy it gets, and believe me, when you have a lot of kids, it gets really messy and they don't want to clean it up. So all right, that's enough for me. Let's get right into it. My guest tonight is someone who is not just a friend, but he's also family. It is my brother-in-law, Phil Sievers. He's hanging out with us in Utah, and he's a dad of four. He's about to start a brand new job at the University of Utah Hospital. He's got, a brand new Jeep, and he's probably a little too excited to talk about that, but we'll make sure we get into his Jeep and all the things that he's going to do out there. So let's get this conversation rolling. First things first, Phil, how are you?
I'm good. Thanks for inviting me.
Absolutely. I'm so glad you're here. So what do you got in the glass tonight, my man?
Drinking whatever was in the fridge tonight, and that was Stella Artois. So
Stella Artois. That looks like a good beer. I enjoy a good Stella. They have that fancy wrapping on the top.
yeah, it's
Like,
like
oh,
almost opening a bottle of wine.
Yeah, it's right. It's Artois. Like, you can't even say that without being fancy. Yeah. I myself have a local brewery here in Gainesville, Florida, called First Magnitude Brewing Company. It is the Party Barge Pilsner, right? It's actually a pretty cool can. It kind of reminds me of like that beatbox where you drink a lot of like wine or something like that. But this thing is fantastic. So while we before we get started, and let's set it in, let's set the vibe, Phil.
I have to use a bottle opener for this one.
It's
no twist top. Yeah.
No Oh, man. You know what I love after a long day is something cold and refreshing and crisp. And honestly, a beer absolutely does that. There are times where I know I've had way too many. Yeah. But I'm learning to kind of to find my limit and keep it below that because I'm just more fun that way, I guess. And so let's we got the drinks out of the way. We know that you're sipping on some Stella Artois because you're fancy. And let's take a snapshot of your dad life. So you have got 4 kids, right? A 16-year-old, a 12-year-old, a 7-year-old, and a 1-year-old. That's a lot of energy under one roof, bro. Oh, yeah. So what's the dynamic like these days, and who's keeping you on your toes the most?
Well, right now it's the 1-year-old because he's into everything.
Yeah.
he's not interested in toys. He's interested in everything else. Whatever's in the cupboard, whatever's in the trash, toilet
Nice.
water, whatever it is other than toys. That's what he wants to be in. So yeah, definitely him. And then the only girl, the 7-year-old, she keeps us on our toes too. She's very,
He's high energy.
oh yeah, very much so.
I think she FaceTimes Harper 20 times a week.
Oh, probably, yeah, yeah. She loves it. She
She
loves
really
it.
does.
She'll just disappear, and we'll be like, "Where did she go? Oh, there she is. She's on the phone calling somebody."
Calling somebody. Such a fun family atmosphere, and the age ranges, right, are just really, I mean, they're tight
Oh,
and yet they're not.
right.
So you have this teenager who is, you know, learning to figure out who he is in the world and in the family, and then you have a 1-year-old. How does that dynamic work out?
It's a little tricky right now, just because the age gap is pretty far apart, 15 years. So it's a little tricky.
Yeah.
And the 16-year-old, we don't have them all the time, so it's a little, I'd say, awkward at times,
Okay.
just because there isn't really like a close connection.
Yeah.
But and it, that's one of the tricky parts, is trying to figure out how that works and try to still be a cohesive family with
Yeah.
that
So
large age gap.
that's the interesting. There's guys out there that have a scenario like you're in right now, and they have older kids, and then they have a younger child, and they're probably trying to navigate how, like a 16-year-old kid still needs to have that interaction with dad, like, on a regular basis, because they're not fully grown yet. They're just
Right.
16. Like, they think they know everything. They really
Yeah.
don't.
Yeah.
But you can't argue with them at that. And at the same time, they also want to be in charge, but they don't really want to have anything to do with the kid that they can actually boss around.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
You literally have got your own little army right here, pal.
Yep.
Show them what's up.
Yeah.
That's
Exactly.
so it's been a fun journey for you, being in the house with all those kids and all that energy. How often do you step on Legos?
Anytime I go in the playroom or the bedrooms, like it is, it's always the little ones, and they always seem to have the sharpest pointing up. So
Well,
it's
I
like,
mean, it's the Star Wars ones because they have the sharpest points. Like,
yeah,
everything has like a knife on the end of it, and those
yeah,
are the ones you
exactly.
find.
Oh yeah,
That's so you're about to start a brand new job in emergency management. You've been doing that for a really long time, but
yeah.
you're going to be joining the University of Utah's hospital. Tell us what drew you, first of all, to that field of emergency management.
Kind of, as a field, honestly, 16 years ago, I knew really nothing about. I think most people have heard of FEMA, but don't really know what FEMA is, or maybe even what it stands for. But when I was serving in the National Guard, the unit that I was the detachment commander of, we were assigned as a search and extraction team for
Okay.
the Homeland Response Force. So in the event of a disaster, our mission was to go into collapsed buildings and pull people out. That was my introduction to emergency management. Fell in love with it. Kind of worked my way through it, getting civilian side education, also while doing the military stuff, and worked my way into being the liaison to the state for the National Guard for emergency management.
Wow.
And then once I separated from the military, I became the emergency manager for the state of Utah, the Utah National Guard, and just kind of worked my way into that. Wanted to transition out of the military, and so that's where I'm at now, is more in the hospital setting, to where still doing what I love to do, but out of the military.
So, what are you looking forward to in this new adventure? Clearly, it's very different.
Oh, it is very different, and even the previous position I was doing was very different from what I was doing with the National Guard.
Okay.
National Guard was very heavily focused on wildland fires and earthquakes, And then I was the emergency manager out at Dugway Proving Ground, to where it was more dealing with the test labs and keeping nerve agents where they need to be and not get out. And
Okay.
now I'm dealing with the hospital setting, so it's a
Is
little
is
similar.
is nerve agent code for wife?
No.
Oh, okay, just checking. All right, just making sure.
No, no. And so yeah, now it's the hospital setting. So now it's a very different, have to keep in mind patients. How do we deal with patients during an emergency? So
Right on. Yeah, I mean, it's a completely different environment. Clearly, the education and the experience that you've had is going to allow for a good transition of information. It's just going to be a different utilization of those skills as opposed to collapsed buildings. You're just moving patients that I don't know. It's like tornadoes a big thing out there, or cyclones.
no, no, no.
What do you think?
The biggest threat here is earthquake, and
Earthquake. Okay.
then as far as natural disaster, then you always have events such as what happened in Boulder, Colorado over the
Yeah, just
weekend.
recently, crazy, right?
So part of that is you might not have an emergency that affects your hospital, but you could have an emergency that's going to increase. Now you have mass casualty care and how you
Right.
manage that. So
Yeah, and obviously, putting things into motion and creating, awareness and SOPs that and making sure that those things everybody's aware of those things and what who does what during what
yeah,
is really kind of how you manage that process because you can't do it all by yourself.
no, no.
Right. So I know you've got this awesome military background, and I'm former Army myself, and that experience has definitely shaped the way that I conduct fatherhood, and not always in the best way. Right.
Yeah,
I also know that my military career was back a long time ago. The military has definitely changed, not for the worse or not for the better, but just changed. And
you're right.
um, that experience, like I said, has shaped how I approach my dadding, and and challenges in general. So maybe you can share with me a little bit of how your military background has shaped your fatherhood, and how you approach challenges in life.
Yeah, I mean, I think for mine, it's kind of two levels of how the military has affected it, because my father was in the military,
Yeah,
and kind of the way he brought us up was very much old school military.
sure.
Um, I remember as a kid, some of our punishments were doing push-ups or running laps around the house, things like that. Very almost like drill sergeant type.
Yeah,
Um, and mine, so I grew up wanting to be a dad and wanting to do things different. I wanted to be more of the laid back, kind of easygoing, but also at the same time have high standards
yeah,
and want to kind of hold them to a higher standard. My big thing I always tell the kids is just be a good person.
yeah,
Um, you know, I don't care what you do in life, just be a good person.
yeah.
And then with my military thing is that's kind of how I would treat my soldiers as well. You
Right.
know, more laid back, but hold them at a very high standard. They know what
Sure.
they need to do. You set that expectation, um, and you check in on them. I don't like to micromanage, and I kind of do that with the family. But that could also be a downfall because the older kids do get away with probably much more than they should,
Right.
um, and so like I said, it's I didn't want to be strict like my dad, so I kind of
Right.
went the opposite spectrum, and now just still trying to find that balance um, on what is best or what I feel works best.
Yeah. So, talking about dads, my dad was a former military as well, and I feel like my dad treated us kids oftentimes like prisoners of war when it
Mm-hmm.
came to punishment.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
um, like I remember like my dad would pour uncooked rice in the corner and make us kneel on it for
Mm.
our punishment. Like, who does that? It's
Yeah.
like
We
my
would
dad
get we got mass punishment. One person messed up, we all got spanked,
did. Yeah.
and it was like, and we got spanked by however old we were. If we were 5 years old, we got 5 smacks on the bare ass. And if
Yeah.
if you were 12, you got 12. And it was that. that's in the military, mass punishment.
Yeah.
The whole platoon, the whole
The whole
company,
platoon
whatever.
faces the challenge. Yeah.
Right. But then I think what you learn, at least for me, is you don't rat on your siblings. You don't
Yeah.
rat on your fellow people, because you're all going to get screwed.
Everybody's going to get some. That's right. I think it's just wild how, I love my dad, and I wouldn't change anything about the way that I brought up. But I think about those moments and I'm like, how did that shape me? It shaped me in the way that, like, I knew that there was something far worse as a consequence for whatever I was doing. So it made me think about that a little bit more. And I've actually
Right.
done a really great job of thinking about those consequences when it came to like physical pain. Not so much mental pain, because I mess up all the time, man. And I'm like, geez, anguish, right?
Yeah.
But physical pain is very different, because I don't like being in pain at all. Biggest dad surprise for you, Phil? You said in the questionnaire that I got in conversations that you didn't think that being a dad was something that would happen at all for you,
Right.
and it did, right?
Yeah.
So what was that like, and what change um, in your perspective in life has been created from that, being a dad?
So I don't know. That goes back pretty far. So when I was younger, I went through chemotherapy, radiation, um, and after all that, I do my annual checkups with the oncology. And it was right around when I was like 16, 17. I was told they weren't sure, but there is a high chance that you never have kids. So obviously that was, I always wanted to be a dad. um, I had nieces and nephews from when I was a young age,
Mm-hmm.
always around kids, always wanting to, have that experience of being a dad, but then being told you may not. Like, that was kind of devastating, even at a young age. And so I did get married at a younger age, and my first marriage, tried to have kids for several years. It just wasn't happening, so I just didn't think it was in the books for me.
Right.
Um, but it did. When I was 26, had my first son, and that was, you know, I thought it was the greatest thing in the world to be able to bring up this little thing and have like a forever buddy, basically.
Yeah, man.
Um, and now here I am, 42 years old with 4 kids. So it's,
Totally different perspective, man.
oh
It's
yeah,
it,
it's nuts.
it
Honestly, like,
is.
I
And
look
your
back
nuts
and it's
work.
crazy.
And your
Eh?
nuts work. So that's
Yeah,
good.
well, not anymore, but
Not anymore. Hey, thanks to the VA. That's awesome. so so obviously, 16 years ago, right? You had this amazing moment in your life where you became a dad. And now 16 years later, the teen years, man.
Oh yeah,
It's probably one of the hardest things to do is connect with your oldest when your worlds are so different
right.
and how you grew up. So
Oh
maybe
yeah.
you can give me a little bit of insight to, just how does Phil deal with that?
Huh.
Not very well
Some
sometimes.
days I feel like I do all right, but a lot of days not so much. Just because we're so very different.
Right.
Um, you know, as a teenager, I keep looking back. I keep thinking back, like, what was I doing at 16? Like, I was never home. I was always outside. By the time I was 16, I had a car, so I was always, you know, going somewhere. I didn't want to be home.
Right.
And then, so my 16-year-old doesn't want a driver's license. Doesn't
Uber,
like,
baby.
doesn't want to be outside. Would rather just play video games all day.
Hmm.
Um, you know, that's his way of hanging out with friends, is this online gaming stuff, and that drives me crazy, because, like, I want him to get outside, go do things, experience the world, kind of grow up a little bit, get some
Yep.
hair on your chest per se, type of thing. But
Sure.
it just isn't there. And I think, since we don't have those common interests, I do feel that causes some friction between us,
Okay.
because I think what he feels is that I don't want him home. I just want him to get out and experience life. It's not that I don't want him home. Like, I would love to have him here, but I also
Right.
understand he needs to be out there and experience things other than just a screen.
Right on. Well, I know that there's a lot of stuff going on in your life right now. We got a few minutes here, so tell me that new Jeep, that toy for Dad, right? Uh, you picked it up recently, traded in your vehicle. What drew you to a Jeep, and what's been your favorite part about having one, man?
um, so we took the kids. This kind of goes back to like about last year. We took the family out to the geo beds out in the West Desert here in
Yeah,
Utah, and we took our SUV, wife's car. You know, it's a nice car. You know, Mercedes SUV. Probably shouldn't be taking it off road, but we
no,
did, and was told never again. So, you know, and then I had a car that wasn't for off roading, but I want to take the kids out camping more and kind of do adventures. And I figured, hey, it's a great opportunity to, you know, trade in the car I had and get a Jeep so we could go on these little Jeep adventures. We live in Utah, which is an amazing place to be
absolutely.
outdoors. And so, yeah, we've been doing some little off roading, waiting for some of the other ones to open up at the higher elevations. But, you know, going through some old, like, train tunnels and just some
Yeah,
off roading stuff. It's been awesome.
I've seen the pictures, and I was like, "Where are you guys?" And I'm like, my Jennifer's like, "They're in Utah. Where do you
Yeah.
think they are?" I'm like, "Oh, okay, that makes sense, right?" So
Yeah.
that's pretty awesome. You have hobbies. You like to recharge, and obviously having a Jeep allows you to have a brand new hobby
Mm-hmm.
that allows you to kind of take the whole family and enjoy something together.
Right.
But you love golf, man,
Yeah.
and we've played Top Golf before, and I'll be honest with you, everybody listening here, he's not as good as me, but because Top Golf is all about the points. It's not really
Yeah.
about how good you can hit the ball. You're actually really, really good, and so I've had a chance to play lately.
Um, yeah, it's been probably about a month, but yeah, I try to get out as often as I can, you know, as the business allows.
Right. And that brings me to the next thing I wanted to talk about, because we're going to go ahead and give a huge shout out and make sure that Beck Engraving gets as much representation as possible. But I first want to say I want to give some love to our wives, right?
Oh yeah.
They literally are the apples of our eyes, and I just feel like they keep things balanced in the house, uh, and they probably do, especially since you got 4 kids, right, with all that stuff going on and the way that she plans. Tell me a little bit about the beauty of your life.
Oh, yeah, and she keeps everything together. She keeps us on track. Um, you know, she's a mom and she runs a business, and you know, which neither of those things are easy. And then you put them together, it's almost damn near impossible. But she keeps it going. Um, you know, she's done this. You know, also, you know, an immigrant, really. You know, she's only been here, you know, a short time, but has been able to do amazing things in that short
I don't really think she's from Europe at all, England,
time.
because I've used the word Cheerio, and she's like, "We don't even say that there," and I'm like, "Yeah, you do. I've
the,
seen the
the,
TV."
the older generations
Yeah.
do.
She says Wheaties, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
So yeah, your wife is pretty amazing, and I feel like you guys are doing such a great job, and you took some time out of your busy schedule working with Beck Engraving, the business that you have going on. Tell us about your business. What part do you play, and how often does that fit into your already busy life?
You know, honestly, it takes up a lot of our time. But you know, we're making some changes to allow us some more family time and more time for her and I just together. But Beck Engraving, it's custom laser engraving and UV printing, where we mainly focus on like large corporate events, corporate branding, and weddings. Um,
Any clients you want to throw out there? Well, who have you worked for? Utah
uh,
Jazz, NBA.
yeah, we've done Utah Jazz, we've done NBA All Star weekends. We've done a big one right now is Lola Blankets.
Okay.
We're doing the Utah Parade of Homes this week, so we're pretty slammed with that this week.
Wow.
Um, we've done stuff for Mercedes. We've done stuff for Revlon. We've done stuff for Redken,
Yeah.
um, Urban Decay. You know, lots of big names, big brands.
What's the website that people can go and visit if they want to reach out and maybe get some stuff for their parties? Because you guys ship.
Yeah, we ship all over the U.S. Most of our stuff we ship out. So it's beckengravingdesignstudio.com.
Okay.
Um, you
I'll make sure
Beck,
you guys will see that in the content of the show.
yeah, follow on Instagram. We're there. That's where you get to see everything that we do. Um, so yeah, and my part is she designs everything. She, and I do the production work, and then she makes it look pretty. So
Right. And so she's the one that gets the clients, talks to all the rich and famous people,
yeah,
and you just hang out in the background, and be like, I do the machinery.
yeah. I push go on the machine.
Hey, it's a very important job.
Yeah,
It's a very important job. You have a really good index finger.
yeah. It hurts.
So before we wrap up this show, it's been about 25 minutes we've been talking. I could talk to you all stinking night, but before we call it a night, and before we wrap up the show, maybe you can give us a piece of advice, like some sage advice for dads that may be listening tonight, that are kind of in the same shoes as you, has multiple age groups in the house, running a business. What would that sage advice be? Put your hat on.
The biggest thing is find out. Each of your children are going to be very different. I have 4 kids, and they're all very different interests. It's find out what those interests are, and be interested in their interests. Ask them more about what they're into, and find that way to connect with them. By doing that, I think it'll make things much easier. I'm still learning to do that. Still, it's a struggle every day, but they're our kids, and we're never going to give up on them.
That's wonderful advice. And I know that there's a bunch of men out there right now, dads supporting dads, that are listening and either saying, man, that is awesome, I'm going to put that to work tomorrow, or I'm doing that, or I've never thought of that before. So if you're a dad out there, we want to say thank you so much for joining us on Two Dads Having a Beer. Phil, thank you so much for taking the time out of your extremely busy schedule, your hectic life, shaving your head, wearing those headphones, and helping me bring this show back to life. And to everybody listening, thank you so much for hanging out with us. We're just getting started, so keep those beers cold, keep supporting each other, and if you want to be a guest, hit me up. And make sure that you follow, and that you like, and that you support us. And don't forget to go to Beck Engraving and Design Studios on their Instagram and Facebook. And you guys have a TikTok?
No TikTok.
Yeah, we're not going to support
Instagram,
that.
website.
All right. So all of those things, and TikTok coming soon. Until next time, guys.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Love you, man.
Thank you.
All right. And end recording. I think we're still here.